July 4th, 1944, 6:18 a.m., Slido Airfield, Saipan. The morning air is already thick and wet. Engines roar low over the trees. Japanese fighters break through the cloud cover and dive hard toward the runway. Pilots line up their shots. They expect parked aircraft. They expect fuel trucks. They expect panic. Instead, the ground erupts. Sheets of fire burst upward along the runway edge. Orange flames leap higher than the palm trees. Heat rolls across the concrete. Black smoke slams into the attackers' windshields. One pilot jerks his stick back. Another fires blindly through the smoke. Tracers vanish into fire. On the ground, Marines crouch behind revetments. Hands grip igniters. Valves twist open. Fuel rushes. Flames surge again, louder this time. A deep rushing sound like a storm breathing. The runway disappears behind fire. A Zero screams past at mast height. The pilot flinches as heat flashes across the cockpit. His wing dips. The aircraft skids sideways, barely clearing the flames. He pulls up hard, heart hammering. This is not what the briefings warned about. This is not what air defense was supposed to look like. Above the burning runway, combat seconds tick away. What happens here will echo across the Pacific, far beyond this strip of scorched concrete. If you want more stories like this, make sure to subscribe, like, and share. By 1943, American airfields in the Pacific faced a brutal problem. Japanese air attacks had shifted tactics. Instead of high-altitude bombing, pilots came in low. Very low. They strafed runways, fuel dumps, and parked aircraft. Speed and surprise mattered more than bombs. United States needed airfields close to the front. Coral islands and jungle clearings became runways almost overnight. Engineers worked fast, often under fire. But defending these airfields was hard. Radar coverage was limited. Fighters could not always scramble in time. Anti-aircraft guns had blind spots against fast, low passes. Commanders needed a way to deny the runway itself. If enemy pilots could not see or use the runway, their attack lost purpose. The idea came from ground combat. Flamethrowers had already proven effective against bunkers and caves. Engineers and Marine officers began to think differently. Fuel was everywhere. Aviation, gasoline, diesel, thickened fuel mixtures used for flame weapons. By late 1943 and early 1944, improvised runway defense systems appeared. Fuel lines were buried along runway edges, steel pipes with nozzles angled upward. Portable flamethrowers were mounted on trucks or sandbag pits. Some systems used simple gravity feed tanks. Others relied on pumps scavenged from vehicles. When activated, these systems could throw flames 20 to 40 meters into the air. The goal was not to shoot down aircraft. The goal was denial. Fire blocked sightlines. Heat forced pilots to break off. Smoke confused aiming runs. It was crude. It was dangerous. Worked. The system demanded discipline and timing. Light it too early, and fuel ran out. Light it too late, and aircraft were already firing. But in the desperate race to keep air power alive on tiny islands, this strange idea earned serious attention. At first, many doubted it. Early tests were rough. On training fields in Hawaii and Australia, crews struggled with leaks and misfires. Fuel hoses burst under pressure. Valves jammed. One report noted ignition uneven, flame height inconsistent, crew exposure excessive. Training accidents followed. One incident, a sudden wind shift, pushed flames back toward friendly positions. 2 Marines suffered burns. Another inhaled smoke and collapsed. Commanders questioned the risk. Is defending aircraft worth setting your own runway on fire? Pilots also complained. Tow! Flames damaged asphalt and steel matting. Heat warped metal. Duh. A fighter squadron commander wrote, "Runway denial protects planes but threatens operations. Repairs required after each use." There were tactical misunderstandings too. Some units activated flames during high-altitude alerts, wasting fuel. Others failed to coordinate with anti-aircraft gunners, creating confusion in the smoke. Japanese pilots mocked early reports. One intelligence summary quoted a captured flyer saying, "Americans burn their own fields." Strange defense. Enemy commanders believed the fires signaled panic or sabotage. Numbers did not help early confidence. In the first 3 months of limited use, only a handful of attacks were disrupted. Fuel consumption was high. One airfield burned through thousands of liters in minutes, but the idea did not die. Instead, crews learned. Procedures tightened, safety improved. Timing became everything. The turning point came when defenders stopped thinking of flamethrowers as weapons and started treating them as terrain. Crews mapped approach paths. Japanese pilots favored predictable low-level runs aligned with the runway. Flames were placed where those paths crossed. Wind patterns were studied. Ignition teams drilled until activation took seconds, not minutes. Technical improvements followed. Fuel mixtures thickened to cling and burn longer. Nozzle angles were adjusted to create walls instead of columns. Some systems used staggered ignition, creating rolling fire that expanded as aircraft approached. The real strength lay in the effect on pilots. At speeds over 400 kilometers per hour, reaction time was tiny. Fire filled the forward view. Cockpits overheated instantly. Even without damage, pilots broke formation. One after-action report noted, enemy attack disrupted before effective strafing. No aircraft losses on ground. Defenders learned restraint. Flames were used only at the last moment. Smoke combined with machine gun fire from quad-mounted 50 caliber guns. Tracers guided aim through the haze. The system did not replace other defenses. It enhanced them. Fire forced altitude changes. Guns exploited hesitation. Fighters scrambled into a confused enemy. By mid-1944, several Pacific airfields quietly adopted the tactic. It remained unofficial. It rarely appeared in manuals. But among those who used it, confidence grew. The shock would come when it met combat. On June 15, 1944, during the early days of the Saipan campaign, a Slido airfield faced repeated air attacks. Japanese forces knew its importance. Without it, American fighters would operate at the edge of their range. Just after dawn, 8 Japanese fighters approached from the south. They flew low over the water, then climbed slightly to clear trees. Marines watched, fingers tight on ignition handles. The lead aircraft opened fire early. Tracers stitched across parked bombers. Then the order came. Fire, flames erupted along the eastern runway edge. Not all at once. First a line, then another. The second wave of attackers flew straight into smoke and heat. One pilot shouted over the radio, "Runway burning. Brake." His wingman did not pull up fast enough. The heat caught him. Control surfaces shuddered. He clipped the flame plume and rolled away, trailing smoke. The attack collapsed. Only seconds of firing hit the ground. No aircraft were destroyed on the runway. Later that month on Guam, the tactic faced heavier pressure. 12 Japanese aircraft attacked in 2 waves. The first wave drew anti-aircraft fire. The second came lower. This time, wind gusted across the field. Smoke drifted unevenly. One flame line failed to ignite. Japanese pilots saw a gap in dove. Machine guns hammered. Flames surged again, closing the opening. The pilot fired blindly, then yanked up. His aircraft survived, but his aim did not. A Marine corporal later said, "They came in brave. They left fast." The most dramatic encounter came on Okinawa in April 1945. By then, Japanese pilots were desperate. Some missions blurred the line between attack and suicide. At Yontan Airfield, defenders faced near constant alerts. Fuel was rationed. Every flame activation mattered. On April 12th, just before sunset, a mixed group of attackers approached. Some carried bombs, others appeared empty, light and fast. As they lined up, anti-aircraft fire filled the sky. One aircraft pushed through, wings level, straight at the runway center. The flamethrowers ignited late. Too late. The aircraft burst through the first wall of fire. Flames licked the fuselage. The cockpit glowed. The pilot did not pull up. He struck the runway short of parked aircraft. The explosion rocked the field. Fire burned for hours. Even so, the remaining attackers broke off. One radio intercept later recorded a shaken voice. "Field as hell. Fire everywhere." In the days that followed, attacks continued, but coordination faltered. Pilots climbed higher. Strafing runs shortened. Hits decreased. Flamethrowers did not stop every attack, did not save every aircraft. But they changed the fight at the last seconds, where decisions were made. Behind the drama lay logistics and industry. Flamethrower defense used what the Americans had in abundance: fuel, steel, trained engineers. Unlike new aircraft or guns, these systems required no factories. They were built on site. Pipes welded from scrap, tanks taken from vehicles, igniters adapted from standard equipment. By 1945, dozens of Pacific airfields had some form of flame-based denial system. Fuel use varied. A single activation could consume thousands of liters, but it saved aircraft worth far more. Japanese air forces could not match this flexibility. Fuel shortages limited training. Replacement aircraft arrived without experienced pilots. Attacks relied on courage more than coordination. American doctrine evolved. Runway defense became layered. Radar early warning, fighter patrols, anti-aircraft guns, then fire at the final moment. Production numbers tell part of the story. The United States built over 300,000 aircraft during the war. Protecting them on the ground mattered. Even saving a few planes per attack paid off over time. Flamethrower defense never became standard everywhere. It remained situational. But in places where it worked, it multiplied the value of existing forces. For Japanese pilots, the psychological impact was sharp. They trained to face guns and fighters. Fire on the runway felt different. Diaries recovered after the war mentioned burning fields and walls of flame. One pilot wrote, "The ground rose to meet us in fire." Slang spread among crews. Some called such airfields dragon mouths. Others joked darkly about Americans setting traps with gasoline. Fear showed in behavior. Pilots released weapons early. Strafing runs shortened. Formations loosened. Confidence dropped. An intercepted transmission captured a moment of doubt. If runway burns, abort. No honor in blind fire. For defenders, morale lifted. Marines and airmen felt they had a final shield, something they controlled directly. One ground crewman said, "We could fight back without leaving the ground." Fire did not kill many pilots directly, but it bent minds. In air combat, that mattered. Late in the war, systems improved further. Remote ignition reduced crew exposure. Better fuel mixtures burned hotter and longer. Some airfields integrated flame defense with obstacles and berms to channel approaches. As Japanese attacks shifted toward kamikaze strikes against ships, runway defense saw less use. Still, on forward fields, the systems remained ready. By 1945, American air dominance was overwhelming. Flamethrowers became insurance rather than necessity. But their presence stayed in planning documents and engineering notes. They never became famous. They had no names or serial numbers. They left little behind except scorched concrete and memories. After the war, most systems were dismantled. Pipes pulled up, tanks drained. The idea faded as jet aircraft and new defenses emerged. Yet for a brief period, fire guarded the sky from the ground. In total, flamethrower runway defense protected hundreds of aircraft and disrupted dozens of attacks. It cost fuel and risked crews, but it denied the enemy crucial seconds. What began as a desperate improvisation earned quiet respect. One Japanese veteran later reflected, "We trained for bullets and steel. We did not train for fire rising from the earth." The legacy of this strange defense is simple. When survival demanded it, even the ground itself became a weapon.